Today's video is all about the personal elevator pitch. So whether you're completing an assignment for a business course at school, you're preparing for your upcoming career fair, or you're just trying to get ahead of the curve and make sure that you're ready for all of those networking opportunities I shared with you in my past videos, then turn up the volume because what I'm sharing in today's video is exactly what you need to hear. Hey there, I'm Jenna Ryan from theinternhustle.com, and this is Initiative Muscle Monday, helping you to start each week with an intentional step toward a successful future. Let's do this. Okay, before I go into the standard elements of an elevator pitch, because you could look into any video on YouTube about elevator pitches and probably get those, I'm going to break down what I think is one of the most overlooked aspects of an elevator pitch. This is your ability to connect with people. So think about it. Most people go into creating a pitch thinking it's all about me. It's my personal elevator pitch. I have to talk about me, and what I'm looking for and what my experience is and what my strengths are. And yes, a lot of that's true. But at the end of the day, people are a lot more open to listening to you if they have something to connect with you on, if they can relate to you. And so your job is to actually come up with what that is. Now, of course, I don't mean neglecting your intro, right? You should absolutely lead a conversation with someone on what your name is and some of the basics. But if you fail to touch on this connection point within your 30 to 60 second window that you have with someone when you're giving your personal pitch, then you've really missed the mark. So what do I mean by connection points, and how can you do this and play it out in real life when you're delivering your personal pitch? Well, if it's someone that you're meeting with who you are seeking, so it's a potential mentor, someone that you would really like to learn more from, maybe it's an informational interview at first, or perhaps it's just someone in the industry that you bump into at a networking event, but you knew they were going to be there, and so you already had in mind that you wanted to walk up and say something to them. Hopefully you've done your research, right? And this is going beyond just the basics about them. Dig into their past, learn where they got their start in their career, what their personal interests may be, maybe where they went to school, where they grew up. These are all things that you can eventually connect with them on. And so I made a list of just some of the common things you can keep in your back pocket to typically bring up in connection with someone. So let's just start with where are you from? This is one I still can use today, right? I live in California. I have for the past decade, but I grew up in the Midwest, and I spent all of my childhood and my college years in the Midwest. So still to this day, when I meet someone who's from the Midwest or has some sort of connection, it's something that I can easily bring up and connect with them on. And it might even get as specific as some of my favorite places that I used to go to in Chicago and finding out, where theirs are. So there's so many ways you can go. Honestly, I still do this today with my Uber drivers, which that's a little side note, but that's a great place to practice your personal pitch. Just start having conversations with your Uber drivers, learn about them, and when they ask in return about you, practice your pitch. So get to know your Toyota Prius pals because it is a great way to practice. Sports, maybe you were both competitive in the same sports, or you have a professional team that you both are super fans for. That is a great thing to bond over. Same goes for theater or, Broadway shows or any other special interest that someone may have. If you have it too, that's something to connect. Or perhaps when you were doing this research on someone, you realized that they spent 10 years in the Navy. And your brother's in the Navy now. That's an awesome thing for you to be able to share and bond over. People like to be able to speak to their experiences. And if you can actually speak to it, if you're knowledgeable enough in that area, even if it's not something that you personally do, again, maybe it was your brother, you can still connect with them on that and show interest in what they have done in their past. Let's see, a good example of this, and I kind of just mentioned it, but it doesn't always have to be about you to make it work. And so this is something that I actually did personally when I was going after the Chicago Bulls internship. If you followed my story at all, I had reached out to the strength coach for the Chicago Bulls and asked him for an informational interview. Well, I did my research on him first, and I found out that he's a Wisconsin guy. He loves Wisconsin. Well, I'm an Ohio State person. And the Big Ten, well, yes, it's all Big Ten, and that's one big happy family. There's still rivalries. It's sports. And so I knew that it probably wouldn't be in my best interest to lead with my Ohio State. Instead, I brought up in conversation, I made a connection that my parents both went to Wisconsin and that my dad was a coach at Wisconsin and that I grew up there. I was born in Madison. I have a strong affinity to the school in that way. So while I might be at Ohio State now, it's just because I wanted to carve my own path, but I know about Wisconsin and that's something that's super important to him. Well, it worked. That was a big, big winner. And eventually I got more of a conversation with him and the internship was forthcoming. And so again, that wasn't my personal thing. I didn't go to Wisconsin. It was my parents. But I grew up around it and I could speak intelligently to it and made the connection from there. Okay, so at a career fair, you're not always going to know everything about the person you're walking up to speak to, right? So you're probably thinking, how can I prepare for that conversation and already know a topic to connect with them on, right? Like I wasn't able to do my research on them. I don't know where they went to school because I don't know what recruiter is going to be standing at that career fair ready to talk to me. Yeah, I get it. That's a fair point. But you should go up and give them your standard introduction, right? So that's your name, your major, your year in school, talk to them a little bit about why you're interested in speaking to them about their company. And then before you even give them the chance to flip that conversation around and ask you a question, you need to ask them a question. So wrap up your part of the pitch and then immediately go, I would love to learn about how you got involved with XYZ company and what is it that you love most about working there? There you go. You get them talking. And then you get to actively listen. And while you're listening, you need to pick up on what their interests are. What is something that you can connect with them on? So maybe it turns out you guys are from the same area. Great. That's going back to the where are you from that we talked about. Connect with them on that. Or you find out that they love the company gives them a wellness break every day and they get to go to their favorite yoga class. Maybe you're a full-time yogi in your down hours at school. Great, that's something that you can connect with them on. So again, you can come up with this as you're listening to them. You don't have to go into a conversation already knowing everything about somebody in order to establish a connection and show that you're listening and that you have interest in what they have to say. And then finally, if you're at a networking event or a social event, my advice to you is to try to beat them to the punch with the questions. So if you walk up to them first to introduce yourself, or if they maybe approach you, be the first one to say, what do you do? Or tell me your story. Because then it gives you the opportunity to pause and listen. And again, when you're listening, you want to be listening for those connection points and ways that you can continue to add value to the conversation and continue to ask follow-up questions until you get something that you can really connect with them further on. The key here to delivering a great elevator pitch is to incorporate connection and personal story. Is this making sense? If it is, let me know by hitting that like button on this video. So you may be thinking, great, Jenna, awesome tip, connection, I get it, I need to incorporate that into my pitch, but I still need to understand what the standard elements of a pitch are. All right, let's go through them quickly. The first one is, who are you? So this is your name, where do you go to school, what year are you in school, and what's your major? Get the basics out of the way up front. And again, delivering all of this with confidence is going to set you off on the right foot. The second thing you want to talk about is what are you pursuing? And this doesn't need to be your whole career path mapped out. No one expects that already. If you do happen to have a better idea of that, great, share it. But what I'm really talking about here is what experience do you hope to pursue and gain in terms of skills you want to acquire, just general professional experience. That's where you touch on this. Then you want to talk about any past experience that you may already have. So this comes down to past work experience. Maybe you've already had an internship. You can share some highlights there. Otherwise, volunteer and leadership experience within your school community or the outside community is also great. And a lot of people think, okay, I don't have a lot of experience yet. I bet you do. Just dig a little bit deeper, try to find some things. But if not, make sure you're really then stepping into the next point, which is to highlight your strengths, right? So everyone has things that they're good at. Whether it's a hard or a soft skill, you do have strengths. And if you don't know what these are, ask the people who are close to you. They'll be happy to tell you some of the things that they think you're best at. And then this is also where you really want to tie into relevant connections that you have with people. So again, we've talked a lot about the connection points. If you haven't already had a chance to dig into a conversation with them to understand what some of their interests are, maybe you at least understand a bit about the company where this person works, and you can tie some relevant connection points back to that. But somehow you want to be able to connect the dots for them and let them know why it is that you're interested in an opportunity potentially with them or with their company or learning more from them in the future. Make it relevant. And then at the end, you want to either open it up for dialogue if you have time, right? So your pitch is pretty much done, you're wrapping it up. So either open it up for dialogue by asking further questions of them and really getting to know them so that you do have points to connect on, or you want to make an ask and get to closing the loop. So that ask might be, do you have any internship opportunities? Who could I talk to at your company about those? Or would you be willing to stay in touch? Here's my card. I would love to just continue to build upon this relationship in the future. And I would love to follow up with you on LinkedIn as well. Is that okay? Right? So those are some simple ways to just close the loop, follow up, and make sure that you have an ask of this person. So there you have it. Connection and the standard elements that go into making a great elevator pitch. Good luck. Go out there and flex your initiative muscle with a polished pitch. And next week, I'll be back with some resume tips, because if you do well with the pitch, then people are likely following up and asking for your resume next. So you better have that ready to go. I'll see you in next Monday's video. Be a pal and share it with a friend or two, and hit that subscribe button on this channel so that you don't miss a thing.